Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the 20 Survival Guide. This is your host Emily, and today I am here with a very special guest. We are here with Amy Wright.
Hello everyone.
And Amy is a trauma-informed developmental coach, and she has a big following on social media, and I'd say you're quite well known for your relatable and kind of reassuring content which helps people kind of understand their past and their childhood and what makes them act the way they do in maybe relationships and just lifestyle choices and stuff.
Yeah, so I work with clients one-to-one and then do my online content as well.
I love your content, and your name is Amy Millie, right?
It's Amy Millie online. It's Amy Millie. Yeah.
Okay, so you guys should go follow. Today we're here to have more of like a mental health episode and also kind of some useful tips about maybe why you might be feeling the way you do in a relationship, for example, or why you're wired the way you are and how to reassure yourself that you're going to be okay if you don't know what you want to do yet in your life, because I know that so many people out there are struggling with that right now.
Yeah.
So you're here to break it down for us.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Firstly, I want to ask you, what made you want to be a developmental coach?
So obviously, as you know, I was acting before. I've done lots of different things throughout my life.
Yeah.
And before this, I was acting, and then I was in the film industry and film production. And I think just as time went on, who I was changing. And I was like, there's something about film and acting that's just not really giving me what I need. Also, at the time when I changed my careers, when I went from film into coaching, I had been really struggling with my mental health. And I thought, I want to do something with the pain and suffering. Like, I think there's one of two ways you can go with pain. You can sort of sit with it and it consumes you and it takes over, or you can transform it and be helpful to society or communities in some way. And that's what I wanted to do. And so I moved away from film. I started creating content online on TikTok, just talking really about my own journey, I suppose, with my own struggles, mental health.
Yeah.
I had already trained as a coach a long time ago, and I thought, I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to take the leap and work one-to-one with people. And since then, it's genuinely, and I never like to say that things are a calling or this is my purpose in life, because it puts so much pressure on you to find this one purpose. But it just felt right, and it feels right, and it feels like I'm doing something that is super meaningful and fulfilling. And it's also just rewarding. Like, it's such a privilege to sit with people and to watch them transform their lives. It's the most incredible thing.
And to know that they're opening up to you and trusting you in with all of these personal insecurities and details of their own.
For sure, because so many people they don't have anyone to talk to.
Yeah.
Like, you might, as a coach or as a therapist, you might be the first person that someone can talk to about what's actually going on for them. It's so crucial to have people in your life that you can share what's going on, that you do have a space to think out loud and think for yourself and feel.
Yeah, you're right. I think sometimes you also feel like you have people to talk to, but you don't feel like you can actually speak to them because they might make you feel welcome and willing to speak to you about anything, but you might not feel comfortable yourself speaking to a friend or someone, rather than speaking to someone who doesn't know you, who's like got a separate perspective on your life.
Absolutely. It's sometimes really helpful to speak to someone who is slightly removed.
Yeah.
And also someone who is not going to give you the same type of advice that a friend would or that a parent would. And that's not to say that friends and parents can't give wonderful advice. It's just that there's a different type of relationship that is formed in a coaching or therapeutic capacity.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love your content.
Thank you.
And I think that we could all sometimes use some free coaching on your reels. It's basically
Of
like
course.
a little reminder in
Yeah.
the morning sometimes.
That's
like,
it.
It's great. So, okay. So this is a big question for me. I wanted to ask you, and I'm sure a lot of my listeners have been here before. And this question is kind of a selfish question because I want to know this from you. And this comes from you speaking a lot about relationships and the importance of people understanding their behaviors in relationships, how they act, their tendencies towards their partner. And for example, let's say there's this scenario where someone's feeling disconnected from their partner and they just have this gut feeling that something's just not right, but their partner maybe is, not actually outright saying that there's something wrong, and you can't really go and ask them that because they are being standoffish, but you feel like you might be crazy or thought of as crazy if you actually ask them, bring something up. Maybe that's because you're scared. But how do you navigate this disconnect in your relationship? How do you bring that up with someone?
Okay, I wonder if I can turn the question back onto you for a minute and ask, like, what would your natural tendency be? So you're feeling in your relationship like something's off, something's not right, you're not feeling good, you're feeling a certain way. What would be the natural thing for you to do?
That's a good question. I think what I would do is I would probably call a friend. I would probably start overthinking and stressing that I'd done something wrong, that I'd made that person feel, like they don't want to be with me anymore, they don't love me, that they're kind of bored of me, and I need to then overcompensate to get them back.
Yeah. And that's so interesting, right? Because the first thing we do is we want to call our friends, we want to speak to someone about it. On top of that, we're overthinking. We have confirmed a situation in our head that may or may not be true, but is more likely not true. And so then your behavior as a result changes because you start to think, okay, I'm feeling that we're disconnected here. I've clearly done something wrong. So now I'm going to overcompensate. I'm going to work even harder. But I'm not sure of actually the situation, what's going on here. All I can be aware of is how I'm feeling. And so I think how to navigate it starts early on in a relationship. Like a relationship has to, from the beginning, be built on mutual trust and respect and openness. Like you have to know that the person you are dating has the capacity to be honest and open with you as well. You feel safe enough in the relationship to share how you are actually authentically feeling, because things like this are going to come up in relationships. Relationships are a breeding ground for all of our wounds to come up. And you need to be with someone where it is safe to say, hey, I'm feeling really disconnected and actually I'm feeling insecure, like I've done something wrong and I just need reassurance that you still love me. That's a vulnerable thing to say, but you have to be able to do it. You have to be with someone where they're not going to respond to you with, what are you talking about? Like
you're crazy, or make you feel like you're the one who's overthinking this. Maybe you are, but all that takes is for your partner to say it's okay. Like we're fine. Like, don't you worry about a thing.
And also, if you're overthinking something, it's never helpful for someone to say you're just overthinking it. It's always helpful to be curious about it, and maybe be curious about it together. Be like, I wonder why I'm overthinking. Like, I wonder why I'm feeling this anxiety. Like, what's going on maybe in our relationship that is making me feel really anxious? Can we work together to create perhaps a type of relationship or an environment that feels safer because I'm feeling anxious?
You can't, like I say all the time, you can't ignore your gut. And I'm sure you have a similar stance around, like, your gut feeling is obviously quite important. And most often than not, I like to think that you should trust your gut. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, I mean, it can get complicated in cases of trauma, or like when your attachment system is activated, because once the attachment system is activated, activated, everything feels like a threat. But if it feels like, okay, whenever I'm with this person, I am just feeling really anxious, or I'm feeling really insecure, I'm just not feeling good, feels like something is off, like you said, trust it. You may or may not be right, but trust yourself enough to bring that up as a conversation to be had. You might find out, actually, yeah, you were overthinking it. It was nothing. But if something inside you is saying something here is not right, this is off, it's crucial to bring it up, to find a way to bring it up. A really good piece of advice when bringing things up in relationships: keep the focus on how you're feeling. Like, you don't want your partner to feel attacked or defensive. You want to like cultivate a space where you can have open conversations. That's not going to happen if someone is feeling like you're attacking them. And it's never going to happen if you're like, you're doing this, you never do this, you always do this, you make me feel this way. Just own your stuff. I'm feeling insecure. I'm feeling anxious. They can't
argue with that because it's your feelings. So they have to understand it.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's modeling something really important, which is vulnerability in a relationship. Like,
I love that.
Have to do it.
Yeah. So back again to the gut feeling, and as you said, sometimes it's not always something to trust, especially when you've been through trauma. So on a slight different note, why do you think people get lust confused with love sometimes? Because I think that also links to not necessarily trauma all the time, but maybe some sort of form of that's all you've ever known, and that's what I think love is. But why do you think that is?
Such a good question. We all get caught up in it, like every single person does. And because it's like, okay, lust is about, well, first of all, I think lust is an activation of our attachment system. So it's based on uncertainty, ambiguity, mystery, excitement. We don't know what's going on. We can't predict what's coming next. There's a thrill to it. It's addictive. We are addicted to the uncertainty. Love, on the other hand, takes time to build. It's slow. It's delicate. It's built on trust and like vulnerability. And so it's like especially in our 20s, what are we going to choose? Like, are we going to choose the thing that feels kind of boring in comparison, or are we going to choose the thing that feels fun and exciting and addictive? And like, I want more of this kind of instant hit. So there's nothing pathological or bad about being in a kind of lustful situation, but it is important to recognize the difference. Lust is built on attraction and chemistry. Love is built on something much deeper and much more meaningful. And this is why we can get really hurt in situations where we feel lustful. Also, before you know someone, you can project so much, all of our fantasies onto someone we don't know.
That's what people do a lot, I think, at our age especially. Also just maybe through social media or movies and stuff like that, where you see these kind of romances and these things play out, and and then you assume that the perfect situation that you're looking for is going to look like that. And maybe I've done this before, I'm sure everyone has, where you've gone on a first date with someone and it went so well that you then come back to your friends and they start feeding into this life where you're like, oh my God, he does this, and maybe it's not that far from where I live, and we can go to work together, and he can meet my family, and they like this, and we'll have this looking kid who looks like, Brad Pitt or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fantasy, and of course we all do it. It's necessary. It's important to do that. There's nothing bad about fantasizing, but there is something to be said about Hollywood has kind of screwed it up for all of us, because we think that there is this perfect scenario. Someone is going to sweep us off our feet and it's going to be this wonderful scenario. And then what happens is every time there's like a minor issue in a relationship, we think, oh, this isn't right because it's not perfect. There isn't anything. There's no one, unfortunately, that is going to be able to sweep you off of your feet. and give you this perfect scenario, and you're not going to be able to do the same for someone else either. Relationships take work, like really, really hard, consistent work. And it kind of sounds like unromantic to say that. There's still so much love in the work. It's just not the like thrill of this uncertainty and ambiguity and what is going to happen and what are they going to say and what's coming next.
Yeah.
It's so anxiety provoking, and love is
right.
less anxiety provoking.
I think in our generation, people believe that the feeling of comfort and security and love is something that's boring. And I think we have to learn to rewire our brains to understand that. Don't let other people's opinions or society's view on that to make you think that you're in a boring relationship. You need to learn yourself and train your brain to understand that that is a healthy thing to be in, not something that is boring.
For sure. And sometimes, it is worth, not all the time, and it's not for everyone, but sometimes it is worth exploring in therapy. If you keep finding yourself in these situations where, let's say, it's not just lust, it actually turns into, I am being treated really badly, and I keep finding myself in situations where people seem to have really similar qualities, where they're actually disrespecting me, or I'm feeling really small or insignificant or hurt by these people. I'm not feeling safe in some way emotionally, hopefully not physically. It is worth speaking about in therapy or with like a person on the outside, because it could be that there is like a level of trauma that is unresolved. And the thing about trauma is that we repeat what is familiar until whatever is unresolved becomes resolved.
Yeah.
And so if like you keep finding that my relationships are really problematic here and it's causing me a lot of distress, worth speaking to a professional about it.
Yeah. If it keeps repeating itself and you start thinking maybe, oh, why does this maybe keep happening to me?
Yeah, for sure.
It might be because you need to change something in the way you're acting or the way you're wired.
Yeah, we choose what's familiar, not what's necessarily good for us. And
That's
so we're always going to be, there might be some comfort for some people in being treated badly. We don't know what people's histories are like.
Yeah.
And so if that is the case and you keep finding yourself like, oh my God, okay, I'm being really hurt and I don't know what's going on and it's really, really distressing, that's the time to speak to a professional. If you're like, I want this kind of safe, calm relationship, but I can't seem to find it, or I can't seem to be that person in a relationship, then that's the time to speak to someone.
That's really interesting. And I think that it's not embarrassing to go and speak to someone about it. You don't even have to tell people.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And when you're never too young as well to go and speak to someone about relationship struggles. Just because you're in your 20s and you think maybe I'm not seeing a marriage counsellor, like it can't be that bad. It's best to make sure that you're in a healthy place for someone else.
Of course. It's always helpful. Like, humans are wired for connection. And also, we need to have someone that we can turn to. We need to have at least one person that is a safe person. If we don't have that in a friend or in a parent or in a mentor or a guide or a teacher, what do? It's like a recipe for disaster for our mental health to not have someone. So if you really don't have anyone, like, for sure, there is nothing, but it's commendable to speak to someone, to reach out,
I agree. Okay, another question, and this is also a topic where you can also reach out to a therapist or speak to someone about this, because I'm going through it still, and I'm sure so many of my listeners are, whether you have gone to uni or you haven't, or you're in your late 20s even. I know that you are still finding yourself, and when you were acting and you weren't sure what you were doing, and it's the time to trial and test what works for you. But I know many people are feeling like that. So understanding what the right path is for you is very stressful. What advice would you give to someone who is in that stage in their life, in their 20s, early or late, but they're not sure what their path is before you kind of got on your path, what advice would you give to help them?
I would say who you are and what you want and the type of person you want to be and your values and what brings meaning to your life will inevitably change, and it will change a lot throughout your 20s as you are figuring out so much about your place in the world, your identity, who you are as a person and who you want to be. So instead of, it's so pressurizing, and there is societal pressure as well that's like, figure out what you want to do now for the rest of your life.
Oh my God, so much.
It's insane.
Starts from the school system when you're in sixth form, you have to choose 3 things, and in the UK at least.
Yeah.
And really, if you want to do something like medicine or something completely different to what you chose, you can't. You've narrowed your path. And you don't know at that age. I had no idea.
Of course you don't know. Like, it's insane to have to choose. And I remember thinking that when I was 16. I was like, how could I possibly choose?
Like, you can't even vote at that age. So how are you supposed to know what you want to do with your life?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. It's impossible. And so I think the advice generally should be, stop trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. What you're doing now is not, unless you kind of were lucky in deciding I want to be a lawyer at 18 or a doctor or whatever. Take the pressure off of yourself to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life, and rather ask yourself, like, what would I be passionate about doing for the next 5 years? What am I really interested in right now? Where can I see myself going for like the next few years? You don't need to worry about what you're going to be doing at 30 and 40. There's no way at 21 I would have been like, at 31 I will be doing X, Y, and Z. Like, there's no way I could have.
Idea.
Yeah, of course you don't. And it is absolutely okay and almost necessary to be figuring it out. You can only decide what you want to do by trying different things, changing, saying, actually, yeah, I kind of like that, but I'd rather be doing a bit more of this. That's how you learn what you want to do and who you want to be.
I agree. I think that was a great piece of advice. I think a lot of my friends, a lot of people I know my age don't have a job. I'm managed to just get one, and I haven't even been there for a month, and I'm already learning that it's a whole kind of experience I've never had before, working and being treated like you're in the adult world instead of just like a summer job.
Yeah.
So it's hard to adjust to that. And I think if you don't have a job and you're looking at friends who do have a job, you shouldn't be thinking, oh, I'm not there, they're doing better than me. And obviously you're going to think that, but you never know what could be for you a month down the line. You could get this amazing opportunity which will take you soaring. And you, before that month, you were just at home feeling like you didn't know what you wanted to do in your life. You never know what's around the corner.
You really don't. It's so hard to not compare yourself. Like, it is so hard to not compare yourself to people, especially in your 20s. You're all trying to figure it out together. But if you can, stay in your lane. Like, keep your focus on, okay, what is it that I want to do? Forget about like what my friends are doing, what I think is the right thing to do, what my parents are pressurizing me to do, like what feels like it will be good for me or something that I'd be interested in at this time. Take the time to experiment with different options, and be super patient with yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, we're coming to the end of the episode, but we'll have to have Amy back because I've already learned so much just from this half an hour. And also, I think you guys have too, I'm sure. But I always ask this question to my guests at the end of the episode. And my question is, if you could share one piece of advice that you've learned from your 20s to my listeners, what would it be?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is make sure that you find a way to lean on your friends for support. Like, your friends, and this is where I really messed up in my 20s, and hence why I would give this advice to someone else. Your friends are the people that are going to help you through like the really, really difficult times. They're the people that can literally relate to what you're going through. So find really, really loving and supportive friends that you can turn to, that you can be honest with, that you can be vulnerable with, and you can share what's actually happening for you. Because they are ultimately the people that are going to support you through the challenges of your 20s. You need the community, and you need the support of your friends, and you don't want to take those friends for granted.
I agree. I think that's so right. You have to be there for them like they will be there for you.
Absolutely. It's so important, because the alternative is like we become isolated and we don't have anyone to talk to, and we become more and more insular, and it's like that doesn't need to happen. Like I was saying to you before, someone said to me, your problems are never as unique as you think they are.
Yeah, I like that.
And so even
That's
if you're like, okay, it's really embarrassing telling my friends this thing that I'm going through right now, tell them, because they might be like, you know what, me too.
Yeah,
I'm
and they
going
might
through
not
the
want
same
to
thing.
share that
Yeah.
to anyone or even mention that out loud yet.
Yeah, exactly. So find really loving friends that you can support and be supported by.
I love that, and I don't think anyone's really said that yet, because it's kind of like an obvious one that we don't really think of, or we don't really realize how much our friends shape our life.
That is actually they completely shape our lives.
Yeah.
For sure. And they can also help us so much with like the type of person that we are. They can literally become as important to us as siblings, as like parent figures.
Take your friends out of your life. What is the life that you're living?
Yeah.
It's so different. It's not as fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think that's a great piece of advice. My dog is currently being really needy, so we're gonna have to finish up now.
She's trying to get involved. Just bring her in. Just bring them in.
Okay, the dogs have just come in. They made an appearance.
Should we say it?
They're being chaos.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know
We've
if
got
you
some
can see.
extra guests.
We do. You can definitely hear them.
Oh, look, I got a camera. I think they really want to say hello. Oh, we can see Ruby a little bit. Hi. Ruby. What do you have to say, Ruby? Yes.
You can hear her more than anything.
Yes. I know.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode with Amy, and I know that she will be coming back at some point. We will
Absolutely.
have to have you back.
Of course.
Thank
I've
you
loved
so
it.
much.
Yeah.
There's so much more we have to unfold and talk about.
For sure.
But this is a little taste, and I hope you guys have learned something, most importantly. So, yeah, see you next week. Bye.
Bye.